to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work, just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Be Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peach, and I'm in the studio here at ECAT Studios, and I was doing a different project and got done with it, and I was like, man, I think it's important to have these two fellas on the podcast that have never been on before, but have been amazing friends of 20 plus years, supporters of everything that I've done over the course of my career. And there was just a comment sparked about the importance of relationships. So I'm going to welcome Joe Delude and Joel Lovering. Jay Sullivan is not on, but Jay has been on the podcast. And these two gentlemen with Jay were the three Jays, and I became the fourth Jay through some form of adoption. And but Joe, you guys give an introduction real quick, and then we're going to dig into why this is an impromptu podcast. They weren't even prepared for this up until 30 seconds before we went live. So a little bit about you guys, and then we'll dig in.
All right, we won't give as much of an introduction as we did earlier, but my name is Joe Delude. I'm a retired assistant superintendent for business. Spent 34 years in direct educational involvement. I'm actually still involved, coming up on actually over 50 years now involved in educational roles. And basically started out as a classroom teacher, became a special ed teacher, and then went into administration and spent 20 plus years in administration, and retired back in 2008, and did what I love probably the most, and started traveling, and in 2008 became a travel agent.
Yep. A practicing travel agent, meaning you have to go to every place that you recommend some place to go to.
Everywhere. So if you need to go on a trip, it's not a promotion or anything, because I'm not necessarily looking for work because I'm retired, but I'll be more than happy to give advice for you. Yeah. When
everybody was getting out of being a travel agent, Joe got into it, and he's done all right with it. That's go where nobody else is and see what you can do.
I have three big groups going. I have a group of 14 going in May. I have a group of 16 going someplace in June, and I have a group of 20 going to Iceland in July.
Iceland, that's on my list. I'm going to have to figure out the next list that you got going on there.
Yeah, so. You should come with us. Like I said, nice group of 20.
Yeah. Well,
good group of people.
All right. Well, Joel?
Good afternoon. My name is Joel Lovering. I was in education as well for 39 years in some form or shape. Teacher, assistant superintendent for business, and superintendent. We know Josh through a very, I guess I could say that we know Josh.
Yeah.
And appreciate being on the podcast and learning something myself.
Yeah. Well, I was sitting here when we got done, and I was just thinking about, sharing and how much we share with people, and Be Awesome is one of three companies that I'm a part of, and one of them, a previous company I was a part of. I didn't know necessarily in my career, and I think that the message in this podcast is the importance of knowing your work and that it matters, and the work that you do and the people that you do it for are also vitally important. I don't know if I shared this with you guys, but I'm in the process of writing my second book. If you don't care, you don't count: A Salesperson's Guide to Finding Fulfillment, Not Fortune. And when we talked about a few things, I was like, man, that's just a trigger point of reminder of why I do what I do. It's not, the money's great, and you'd be a fool not to say that you don't want to earn and make money, but the idea of being able to sit and say the relationships that were built, and I was your sales guy, right? That's how I started. Joel, you've never bought anything from me, and I didn't hold that against you, but that's okay.
I got my wallet
here,
man.
but that relationship from selling software in Seekonk to you in 2004, 2005 to asking to be a part of your project, and to have a bond and a friendship.
Yeah.
That's the kind of the mind of being fulfilled in your career. And I was listening to you guys talk about your careers and MASBO being important, and I'm like, man, we should share what that all looks like, because I've got a lot of professionals that are trying to find their way in business, and it's like, if you don't care about the people you serve, the solutions you provide, and the difference that you can make, then you're in the wrong occupation.
Yeah.
And then how you can smell that out, right? Because we talked about 5 or 6 vendors that you guys have worked with over the course of your career, and those are people that are difference makers, not money takers, right? So how does that, like, from people that are listening that are trying to figure out if they like their career or they like the people that they serve or anything, how does that, from your perspective, when you're dealing with companies, like, how do you find that company that you're like, wow, I could really work with those people, or I could really like that person, or I could get on a podcast with them on a whim in 30 seconds? Because we've got a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers in my world. And it's I'm curious. Like, I'm curious to see how our relationships, from your perspective, like, evolved or created or came about, or how that looks.
Well, I think from my standpoint, I think, looking back at the vendors that you've really clicked with and actually have become, I think we mentioned earlier, that they're not just vendors, they're friends. They're people that you're happy to see or happy to hear from. They weren't somebody that would be calling you up and you say, they say to you, I'm busy, I can't take that phone. No, if I'm free, and that's someone that I've dealt with like that, and I'm going to answer them, and I'm going to get right back to all of them regardless anyway, because that's because at some point in time you may need them. You may need that service. I've found some of the greatest vendors have been those who have just been there for you, even if you didn't have anything that you needed from them. There were, I think, probably some of our food service directors over the years, because there were several really sharp people in the food service. They didn't come and push you to go away from somebody, but they stayed with you. They supported you, what you did. They, if you ever needed a little bit of advice, maybe on a competitor, you could get it from them, and you felt comfortable asking them.
Yeah.
And if it came around and it worked out for you later, then that was great.
Yeah.
I mean, you're happy to say, finally, we're doing business together.
Yeah.
Ozzy was certainly one of them.
Is he still working?
Ozzy is still working. He has somebody that's assisting him down.
Yeah, he's up. He's moved up the ladder.
He's kind of, and he's moved up, I think, further in New England.
Yeah.
I had Ozzy was one of the people that I interviewed. Eric, I would enjoy talking to Eric Pimentel, and just found out that Erin Long goes to one of your favorite places. Do you know Erin Long at all? She was
Attleboro.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Erin goes to Rosie's up in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah. Oh, you saw my post on Rosie's.
Yep.
This guy, you see, he follows along. I don't like all my stuff, but he follows along.
I see.
You've got to follow. Rosie's is great. So it's up near Freedom, New Hampshire. So my son's.
And I'm right next door. I told you, if you ever stop up there and you need a place to stay, right, 20 minutes down the road.
I gotta get up there and see you, so I can get my belt out of the beggar's pouch. Is that his beggar's pouch? Yeah. Right on the main drag there in Conway. That's where I got all my belts made.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're right around the corner.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been up there recently. They have a new casino.
Oh no, I haven't been up there.
They have a new casino in Conway.
Wow, that's moving. That's moving right up in the world up there. Getting hustle and bustle.
We're right across the street from there.
Walking distance. Yeah.
Literally walking distance for most people.
Yeah. No, the guy that founded Beggar's Pouch just passed away last year, but he went up there. He started that business. He had it for over 40 years.
Really?
It was interesting. I was up there, and he says, "You want to take over the business?" And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "You want to have a business?" And it was, I don't know if he was ever serious or not, but Amy was like, "Wouldn't that be cool? Like, you could be was it leather? What do they call them? what's leathersmith or whatever
Are
it
they
is.
leather? Yeah,
But it's-
maybe leathersmith.
I mean, his talent and what he was,
Yeah.
what he can make, and so I get all my belts there. It's a little known secret. Is
Yeah.
that's where I get all of them. But
Yeah.
you know, one of the things that the world is challenged with is work-life balance, right? We all talk about it, and what I find is I think that one of the two is typically out of orbit, right? It's you don't like your work or you don't like your life, or maybe you don't like both, and that's a very sad place to be. Sad place to be on in either aspect. One of the things that I found with that as I do kind of reflection on my career is that my work-life balance is together. It's intertwined, and it's because my work life is much like my some of my I would say 90+% of my friends, personal friends, are clients, partners, people I do business with, right? And it just all kind of intertwines in one or the other. It'll be like a Sunday, like you talk about, and I'll get a client that calls that my house knows their name. And they'll say, well, it's Sunday. I go, well, they're not calling about work. They're calling to see what's going on, how I'm doing. They want to talk about the stuff that we don't talk about Monday through Friday when the fires are happening.
Right.
And it's just kind of it's been interesting to think about the career that I've gotten to have with people in my life. And for people that are watching or listening, my career and my success is a direct reflection of the people that I've been around and the people that have shown me the way. And you two are two of the three J's that allowed me to be part of the fourth J. Yeah. It's been a very cool experience for me to think about and reflect on. I remember the first time you invited me to your 5-star, the Cape House. Yeah. The one time in the windstorm. You were there for that, right? All the chairs were blowing across that was just really cool. Like you opened up your house. Like we're at an event. It's on the Cape, and I don't remember if I didn't book a hotel room or whatever it was, but I ended up staying with you guys and having a great time.
That was the big windstorm too that night.
Oh yeah, your patio furniture didn't stand a chance. Yeah. But what are some things that you guys think about in your lives, in your career, that you could share with people? Because you guys are good guys. Like you're held in high regard. You're respected by your peers. I'm sure you've got accolades for days. But like, what are some learning lessons? Like we're talking about, and this was hit me because I can't believe that you've been retired for almost 20 years.
I have, just to be clear, when I retired, I went down and worked in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Then when I finished up with there, I came back up and worked for the Department of Ed.
I remember that.
And then after that, I went back to MASBO when I was doing work for them. So I was working right up until we got COVID.
Yeah.
And then that's
when... But retired from Attleboro was when I remember you.
Yeah.
And MASBO is Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials. And I don't know that I've talked a lot about that on the podcast, but there's a unique position in the world of public education known as business. A lot of people don't think of education institutions as a business, but they all are. They just take their revenue a little bit differently than private sector. Every July 1st, you are allotted an amount of money to be determined based on availability of funds and a budget. And you're responsible as a business official, CFO, assistant superintendent. Your responsibility is to make the best possible decisions with that allocated money to provide the best outcome for our kids.
But having said that, the other piece is that we don't make the decisions that we're going to buy. We have to take that to a school committee.
Right.
We have to get a
consensus,
to spend that money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, from our perspective of sitting in the business chair, I would think if you're coming in and you've done business as you have with school districts, if you're coming in new and you're coming in and you're looking at me as a client and I'm looking at you as the person that's trying to sell something, I'm going to be looking like this to find out what the relationship would be,
Mm-hmm.
as we discussed. But I'm also looking for what's the best deal
Mm-hmm.
for the school department.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you say, we have a certain amount of money. It's all boxed in that budget.
Right.
And if there isn't enough money for it, then we have to look at the budget and see if there's anything we can squeak out of here to put into this fund, because we feel that your product is what we want to do.
Better value. Yeah.
You know, it's not all, and it's not always the relationship per se of the
Mhm.
product. It's the relationship of the person
Right.
that's selling the product.
Right. Well, that's, and I tell companies that I talk to all the time is, if your team that's selling to the business office, the facilities department, the superintendent's office, any of the offices, if your team isn't willing to stand next to that person or people on a school committee to represent themselves, then they shouldn't be selling to those people, because that's important. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's important for that person to have the belief, knowledge, and understanding of what they're providing, to be on camera, to be in the public eye, to say, yes, this is what I told Joel, or this is what I told Joe, and here's how we're going to do it, and hold yourself accountable, because there's not a lot of that today. Like the accountability and especially in the tech space right now, and people experience it. I mean, we just heard Netflix raise their price again, and it's like the third price increase in the last 5 years. First 8, 9 years, they didn't have any price increases. Heck, they were mailing DVDs to you. I mean, we don't even think about a DVD today. But that's some hard navigating. I don't know if you had that before you guys stepped away, but I mean, there's tech companies that come in and they say, hey, we'll give you this for year one. And then in the very small fine print, it says we reserve the right to increase the price no less than, no more than, or whatever we feel like then. And they kind of hook you in. Mm-hmm. And now it's your responsibility. You found that money movement, that presentation to school committee, and the ability to purchase and allocate that good or service. And now it's on your budget, and it's, let's say, $10. Well, next year you're allocating $10 plus or minus a percentage of expected inflation, what you have, which is typically never more than 3% or some number, I'm assuming, what you guys would go off of. Yeah. All of a sudden the person comes to you next year and they say, hey, we've increased the price by 28%.
Yeah. Probably the key, though, and it's different than a general consumer. And sometimes general public, they just don't realize that we have certain bid regulations and laws that we have to follow. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example from our own work industry. Having a project done, let's say a facilities project like a plumbing repair. Mm-hmm. And so you'll have to go out and get proposals for that plumbing repair, and then whoever the low person is, because they also have laws to follow. They have to pay prevailing wage, and the public sector, you have to pay that. Somebody in the public, I remember on cable programs that we used to have, that come on and they go, well, I talked to this plumber and they said they could have done that job for $800 rather than the $1,000 mm-hmm. that Delude paid for it. Well, but what they didn't tell the public was there was a bid requirement. Right. And if that person that had the $800 bid was willing to pay the prevailing wage or were qualified to do the job and bid mm-hmm. on it, and they came in at $800, they would have been awarded the bid.
Right.
And that's the part that they also don't get. And we have to follow those laws and regulations regardless. That's not something you get to say, oh, I'm not going to follow that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if there's still a program, but I took it at Bridgewater State, now University, but it was Bridgewater State College. It was a 2-day doing business with the state. It was actually a state provided program for companies that wanted to understand all of the bid requirements, thresholds, state bid lists, all of that stuff. And I thought that was one of the greatest programs to offer to companies to educate them, so that it minimized those people that said, well, I had to do this, and this.
And we had to go through those programs too.
MCPPO.
MCPPO, Mass Certified Public Purchasing Programs. We had to be certified.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing, Josh, is that I think people that are new in the business, if they're going in, and it's probably more like a food service or maybe a facilities maintenance type of project, they're not going to be the only one submitting a bid.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to go before a school committee, a subcommittee,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to have to make a presentation. And that presentation is going to have to stand up against the other two.
Mm-hmm.
And the subcommittee can make a decision as to which one is the best for the situation that school district's in.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is that they have to understand that there's only so much money in the pot.
Right.
And that's part of what's, as Joe said, budgeted.
Well,
So if you've never done that, then you go in and all of a sudden you see 8 or 10 people sitting around a table and they're all, fingering through papers.
Mm-hmm.
First thing is, oh, what have I done?
Yeah.
But once you get to the point where you've done it a couple of times, you kind of understand the process, and I think that you become better as a result.
Yeah.
And those meetings are public, so even if you don't have a bid in and you want to go and see what the process is, if they have a meeting, you can go and sit in the audience and listen to it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a learning experience.
Yeah. In business, it's, in order to perform better, to have more money available, there's two things you can do: increase revenue, decrease costs. And that's probably the factor in business related to K-12 schools. Your increased revenue is increased student count. Your increased student count has an increase in cost, not a decrease in cost, right?
Yeah.
And so that's that tricky formula that's formulated that makes it challenging for me. That's a certain type of person that understands how that crystal ball actually works, and you can read it and do those things. And for those business officials, we talk about this. No one goes to school or grows up. Like, most kids don't even know that there's a business official
That's right.
taking care of the schools, let alone going to college and everything else. Business managers, business officials, assistant superintendent, CFO, whatever you want to call a title, it is a hidden role, often not seen until you fall into the position through being an educator, being an accountant that wants to get a public sector retirement, or some other factor that falls into place. That said, you still have you have arguably one of the largest responsibilities in the school district. How does that, you guys, I know every day made the best possible decision with the information that you have in front of you. And that's something you have to live with, right?
Yeah.
Not every decision is going to be the best outcome that you could ask for, right? There's going to be things that fall apart. There's going to be companies that come in that, we've got the one, Hamden Wilbraham, where the lights were stuck on for 2 years. They made the best possible decision they could with the new project, and the lighting and HVAC controls were not something people could get access to for over a year, and everything was let up for a year. At the time the decision was made, how much does that weigh on you? How stressful was that when you guys were in your career, like budget season, like you talked about in the last thing we were working on? You're talking about like sleepless nights, like. This is personal for you. This is that's something that most citizens and parents probably don't see, is the level of stress and strain that these decisions put on you and your family and your life. What does that look like?
Well, again, that you were talking about workplace and work-life balance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Joel and I have obviously been friends a long time. We've talked about that before. I mean, my main reason for leaving Attleboro, and then Joel came in after me, was a work-life balance situation. It just was not balancing for a young family that I had at the time, where I was out 3-4 nights a week, every week, not once. And when I made the decision to leave Attleboro at that time in 1989, it was a work-life balance situation, and not only that, I'd be in there on Saturday and sometimes Sunday in the office having to do things. And there are a number of reasons for that there were people that were out and facilities director that was out that they couldn't replace it, didn't have the money to replace them, so that fell.
Yep.
That responsibility would fall on me. So when I made the decision to leave, and I was interviewing with the superintendent in Dayton Rehoboth at the time, and I said to him, well, how many times am I out at meetings? And he said, twice. And I says, two times a week? And he looked at me and said, no, we only have 2 meetings a month. And I went home and I said to my wife, I said, listen, I know it's been a stress. I had a young 1.5-year-old daughter that I never saw the first year of her life, basically, and said, do I stay or do I leave? And said, well, what's the salary? I said, well, it's a little bit more money. And she said,
More money, less
what are you
meetings.
Now, I was torn.
Yeah.
I grew up in that community. I had ties to the community because I was a kid there. I graduated from the high school there. I started teaching there right out of college. So I had some very strong ties. I was very involved with, things in the community. I was president of the Teachers Association back in the early 80s. So I knew a lot of the educators, and it was tough for me to make that decision, but it was a decision based upon if I didn't do it, I don't know where I would have been nowadays.
Yeah.
It's a work-life balance.
So he gave you
Tough
that. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It wasn't as
other-
bad as he
other-
thought it
other-
was.
Yeah.
He did a pretty good job. It just a lot of it has to do with the public. What's the word? Servants. I guess we're the public servants, but the people that are elected.
Yeah.
If they can understand, if they take the time to understand what the problem is, and you can show them how this is going to affect, and as Joe was saying, if you take it from one hand and you go to the other, there's got to be a balance. And if there isn't, then somehow something's going to work and something isn't. And those are the decisions that really sort of, if I had a little bit more, I could make this work.
Yeah.
And it would come out the other end being what you wanted. But
Well, and a lot of times it's showing that you don't have a little bit more, and the outcome could have been this, but this is the outcome that we're going to shoot to get with a shorter runway of available funds or whatever that is.
Right, and people still don't want to hear that excuse, though. They still want you to get there.
Oh,
with
no,
fewer,
100%. Yeah.
They still don't want you, they make it work. That's basically and by the way, a good boss will be the one who will say, hey, why don't you, and I've had this happen before where a superintendent would say, why don't I handle that meeting for you tonight? When we were in Attleboro, and Joe can attest to, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent both had 2 subcommittees to handle. Guess how many the school business administrator, director, funds and facilities had? We had 3.
Wow.
We had 3 subcommittees.
Yeah.
And they were the most active subcommittees. Your finance,
Yeah.
facilities.
facilities, and then student activities, which was we were in charge of student activity subcommittees. They were busy.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Be Awesome podcast. If you are enjoying our episodes, please give us a 5-star rating review on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts. Those ratings and reviews do make a difference in helping us get more exposure, more listeners, as well as giving people an insight and understanding as to what they could expect when they listen to our episodes. Thanks again, and you are awesome. Here's my perplexions of today. And I blame social media, because I blame social media for a lot of things. I believe, and correct me if you don't believe this, I believe active participation supporting school districts and communities is at an all-time low. I believe that the meetings that are being held, the school committee meetings, the town hall meetings, everything, the attendance is probably at an all-time low. And the participation on social media to talk about all the things that are wrong with school districts and towns is at an all-time high. And my trying to figure out, I have conversations with people all the time, and I'm part of that challenge, right? I have some challenges with my own community that I want to try to help with, and I struggle sometimes because I get frustrated, or I go, why did they do this, or why did this happen? What would you give for advice for community, well, both sides, the community leaders that are holding these meetings and making these decisions and trying to be good stewards, good public servants, what would you give for advice to them to get more engagement? And how would you want to see, it's kind of like your comment about the plumber, right? What would be the messaging to the stakeholders, taxpayers, parents, as to how to properly get involved for a positive outcome? Like, let's stop talking about all the problems. Let's start coming up with the solutions and communicating it more clearly. I've never seen such division. We can talk about the politics and everything behind it, but it's really, I watch school committee meetings all the time, and they're like, there's two people there, right? And the two people there are there to complain and say their problem or their piece, what they believe. The overrides are a great example, right? You have people that are going to fight an override no matter what because of their own personal, whatever that is. And it could be, fixed income. It could be any number of rational reasons to them, but it might not be the decision or the reasoning that the school or the town can continue to thrive, right? What's been your experience, or what's a best practice that you'd say, hey, this is the best way to communicate to folks, or do you want I would think that everyone that holds a position of leadership in a community would want their community to be involved and to provide feedback or insight or input. But I just see it as just I literally watch 30 school committees. I'm boring. I know you guys think I'm like this exciting, amazing, like active, like hiking the Alps and all that stuff. But no, I spend my nights, weekends, and holidays basically when everyone else is asleep in the house watching school committee meetings and trying to learn more as I get older. So what are your thoughts?
Well, again, I think it's one of these things where if you understand the problem and you understand the finances and you have a reason for either or, go to the subcommittee meeting and speak for what you believe in. Mm-hmm. And because, again, the school committee is going to vote on it. In our case, we had a mayor, and the mayor's going to give you X amount of dollars. Mm-hmm. And when it comes back, we're sitting in that seat where we have to kind of recommend that this is going to be this, or this should be this. And it's really a conundrum. Mm-hmm. Because of the fact that if you're there, you have a certain point you're trying to make. Mm-hmm. And whether it's for the moving money from one place to another. Mm-hmm. As the school committee is there making decisions, you're sitting there, and I go back to one of my original comments with the other podcast it's all about kids. Mm-hmm. And you got to get that in there. And then some people use that and they'll say, well, these kids aren't getting enough money for these classes and they need it. So it's a conundrum. Yeah. And so you really need, if you are the one that's talking about the need for the kids and you're the person that's really representing the finance, you need to be able to show where the money is, whether we have it or we don't have it. Mm-hmm. And please understand what we're telling you here. Yeah. There's not a lot of money that's out there that's floating around. Mm-hmm. And what do you think, Joe?
I find it interesting that in school committee meetings where people will say, where's the money coming from? Right? Which budget is it coming from? Where is it? And when you said you got to move the money, I think that there's a common misconception of that when there's a need, we'll just find the money, and there's no finding. It's a finite amount that you're given every year based on a formula of per pupil expenditure, where the money comes from, whether it's state, local, or federal, and that's it. Right, that's what you got. You have some, you might have something somewhere that you can. You have to have something somewhere, right? Or like this year, the snow removal budgets had to have been through the roof. Like
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Still got to pay those bills, but then you have to pay all these other bills, right? And you have to figure out that's an interesting game of connecting the dots.
And the other thing with you mentioned the misinformation that's out there, and social media, and that really has been a detriment. But it's always been an issue because when people have that type of a microphone to go out, those people that are going to get on those types of shows are going to be the ones that are trying to find, something that's wrong or something, and it may not always be factual. And I found it best. I always appreciated not just a parent, but also a public official. Like if all of a sudden something was said on a program and the public official called me up and said, why don't you come in and I'll show you? Mm-hmm. It was always good to be able to sit down with them with the budget in hand and say, okay, here's what's happened. You've been misled. Yeah. They said this was happening. No, here's what's happening. And they also have to realize that, particularly in the public sector, you're doing a budget in December, January, February.
Right, you're just finishing.
It doesn't kick in until July 1st at the earliest, but early September, because that's when school starts. Mm-hmm. So your budget's really kicking in then.
Yeah.
And you're doing a budget. A budget is a plan. It's not something to say, okay, I'm spending you developed a budget. You haven't even gone out to bid on your items yet to know that that's going to be a definitive cost. Right.
And you don't know what your existing vendors are going to charge for your upcoming year.
You haven't bid yet. You don't bid until after the process is done, even if you start early.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation to be in, and then you have to move things around to make it work, and that's why school systems there are many school systems that run into. I have articles in here from our last discussion that we had of back in the 50s and the 60s when school systems were running. Out back then, because of the size of the budgets, the deficit might have only been $51,000, but $51,000 then was
the percentage of the deficit is probably similar from 1950s to now. I mean, this has been a cyclical challenge. I mean, I'm in my 29th budget cycle in education and working in the public sector as a company, and as much as I know, there's still a lot that I don't know. Wow. And it's amazing because it shouldn't be this complex or this difficult. But for a school, there's a lot of moving pieces, and I think that's what a lot of parents especially, and it's no offense to the parents, but and I'm one, but you pull up, you drop little Johnny or Sally off at the front door, and they go in and they go learn, right? And you don't think about the lights that need to go on, the heating and air conditioning that needs to happen, the roofs that don't rain, all of the aspects, the school transportation logistics, the nurses stations, right? There's a lot of, hey, we can have one nurse for 4 school buildings now. I mean, that's crazy, right?
And then something happens and the parents go to be scared,
absolutely.
Where was the assistance?
Do we have a student resource officer? Anytime something happens that is that puts fear, uncertainty, and doubt in community members, I hate to say an active shooter, but I mean, it's not the biggest loss of life in schools wasn't an active shooter. It was a train derailment and an explosion, I believe, and tornadoes and natural disasters and things have been equally as difficult. And so building these, I mean, we don't think about tornadoes in Massachusetts, but June 1st, 2011, one ripped 76 miles. And actually, when it's at Hampton Wilbraham, it went right between that new high school that was being built and the trailer that the construction team was on. So that's a real fear. And then all of a sudden we have to put budget allocated to it, right? And figure out how do we take care of this problem? And government and public sector is very reactionary. It's not proactive in saying this could happen, let's think about it. It's like, hey, what's directly in front of us and how do we fix it? And I think that's part of the challenge.
And you mentioned, because I know we had started talking about relationships, and then Joel can tell you from past experience, there have been vendors, because we've had strong relationships with, that have actually stepped up and helped school systems when they've been, and you've had that happen before with you, where a vendor stepped up and said, I'm not going to go with the increase, or I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
And that's been a big positive. The strong relationships you build,
Yeah.
you can rely on people.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to look at the whole picture, right? And it's kind of like I tell people, my kids are going to be fine. Like my two boys, their mother's done an amazing job raising them. I've done as best a job as I can, but I travel a ton. So it's the large weight is on her, and she's done a phenomenal job. Their education, they've done a phenomenal job. Everything's gone really well. But collectively, when my kids are older and they're moving out and they're outside of our control, we want all kids to have that opportunity and that experience to be okay. And it comes in large part with the schools, because we can't control what goes on in parents in their homes and the kids' homes, because the latest number I saw, it's exceeded 3 million. When I started Be Awesome and I met Santa Claus in North Pole, Alaska, episode 3, my homework showed that there were 3 million children that were in a situation of homelessness, foster care, abusive homes, food insecurity. They weren't able to live their best life at home. Mm-hmm. If it was our opportunity to get them to live their best life in schools. Yeah. And that's the job and the roles that you have, and the sense of urgency and the work every day that you do to make that difference. And I think that's an often overlooked item on a line item. You can't put that in a budget, but this is really what the schools are able to do. I mean, in any town USA, you're looking at 10% or greater of your student body that is in that situation.
And again, a lot goes to be said for the support staff in most situations that service these kids. That school bus driver, that when that school bus pulls up and opens that door and greets that child with a
smile, providing student transportation professional. My goal in life, before we talked about legacy before we got on this, one of my legacies is to leave this world with the role being changed from bus driver to smile providing student transportation provider. Because
let's start calling it that.
I mean, it's a little bit longer on the business card.
Well,
but
can we kind of abbreviate what a smile SP?
We'll come up with a word for it. But that's those 3 million kids. It's the last smile that they see on Friday until the first smile that they see on Monday is from that.
I've seen bus drivers that have said,
smile providing student transportation
but they'll also say to the kid getting on the bus, by the way, how's your mother feeling? I know she had a cold.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you have a better provider than that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the, I get private sector companies that want me to consult or work with their teams. And I tell them when they're talking about, culture and challenges and all this stuff, so just go to a public school district.
Yeah.
You don't need to pay me tens of thousands of dollars to come in and tell you how to build dynamic culture and get people to care. Go walk in a public school district, because those employees at any school district USA show up to work every day with fear, uncertainty, and doubt of pink slips, fear, uncertainty, and doubt of citizen support, fear, uncertainty, and doubt of just about everything that you don't have. You guys have ping pong tables and kegerators and all this stuff in your offices, and you're struggling to figure out how to get people to find the why they show up every day. Go to a public school district.
Funny story, one of those groups that I dealt with in CCON, because it's not the same in every system, was crossing guards.
Oh, yeah.
And picture the role that they play every day. Because it didn't come under the police department, it came under the school department. They directly came underneath the school business. And I used to sit with them and negotiate with them. And it was the nicest negotiation I ever had. Because the only thing they ever came and asked for were brighter uniforms and better conditions that were going to make it safer for the kids to be at their stops. And I said, well, don't you want extra money? No, if we can get that, we're happy with that. I mean, you always still did things for them, but
it's funny phenomenal. You say that, because the shirt I'm wearing is from the Berkeley School, which is in Tampa Bay. Prestigious private school. You pull into the front, gated security police check in, and you've got this big building, the George Steinbrenner Student Center, and the barber press box. I think it's Tiki. One of the barbers, the Tiki barber, I think it was. His child went there.
Yeah.
Steinbrenner's kids and grandkids, I think, went there. Like outside of that school, though, there's an elementary school, and when I was there this past December, I got there before I got there, early in the morning, and I'm pulling along the road, and there's this elementary school, and there's a crossing guard, and stops traffic with authority, like standing out there, like, you will not cross this line. And what was amazing was that reward for that crossing guard were the high fives and the smiles. Those kids that were walking to elementary school by themselves without their parents, that was their reward. There was no amount of money that could have replaced that, because that crossing guard knows those kids are going to remember him well into life and not forget.
I remember my crossing guard from Washington School in South Attleboro when I was in first grade.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that?
I remember.
That is that's the secret sauce right there of being that memorable, positive impact on these kids.
Something positive for the day. That's all it is.
Yeah, but it makes all the difference in the world. And you got to take yourself out of your own spot of wherever that is and realize these kids are coming to you. There was a saying I just read was better to grow a child than fix a broken adult.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something to be said about that, and
a lot to be said about it.
Building those teams around you that feel and live the same way that you do, by the same beliefs of this is about kids. This is, I mean, it's a very simple formula, right? And
it's about kids. It's about the future.
Yeah, 100%. And like realizing that these issues of budget and everything, because when I thought about doing this, is like, when we talk about the importance of relationships, let's educate my listeners to what a business official, business manager is in the district, and then talk about the importance of cohesiveness across the board with everybody, because there's just so much friction right now. And what most people don't understand is we're on year 2 of no COVID money, and that was a huge impact, right? We were physically distant, because I don't like the word socially distant. While we were physically distant and we're going through all these challenges and having all these difficulties, and COVID was, kicked all our tails, there was a lot of money infused into public education. The greatest provider, purchaser of goods and services is our government. And that money was here until 2024, and now it's disappeared. And everybody's sitting here saying, what happened? Where did we go? And by the way, that money was supposed to be made for one-time purchases, which is a very gray area.
Sure is.
And there's a lot, and I'm not going to say, and I go into everything with best intent in my businesses when it comes to schools. Even when something looks off, I try to look at it at best intent with the idea that person had the best intent for the outcome for the kids, right? So that is, as long as you start with that, you can start to peel away the layers of the onion. But it's hard. It's difficult to think about. And then when you look at, there probably aren't that many school districts, if any, in the country that didn't have something that happened with that money that causes stress today, right? The air filtration systems. This is my killer, right? I get that we need to do it, but the number of air filtration purchases that were made, that the filters actually cost more than the unit. It was needed. They needed to be purchased, but now those units are either not being used, or there's a huge budgetary strain on replacing those filters, right? And so a lot of them sit dormant. And these were all best decisions that could be made, right? Remember they had $5,000 temperature taking stations, and it was an iPad with a plexiglass thing that some guy created that said, "Hey, I got an opportunity here. Let me capitalize on COVID." There was a lot of capitalization on COVID.
There was.
And we had to do, and when I say we, you guys, your industry, your people, had to try to weed through that while also trying to make your constituents and your stakeholders happy, right? Because when I talked to one facility director, I said, "Hey, we got a community member that has no experience in HVAC, but says that they're experienced, and we need MERV 30 filters."
Yeah.
I go, "Is there even such a thing as a MERV 30 filter?" And I think I looked. I think that there is like a MERV 36, but it's not widely used. I said, "Well, what do you do?" He says, "Tape 2 MERV 15s together." Like, that makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
But this was the logic or lack of logic. Fear caused a lot of decision making, and now we're in this kind of quagmire.
Well, we're going to be on that topic, by the way, in podcast 7.
MERV 30
for
filters?
the MASBO,
Yeah.
MASBO history.
Yeah.
Podcast number 7 is COVID.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's a huge part in your careers. I mean, that's...
It certainly is. And,
yeah.
and I, kudos to the school business administrators and school systems
Yeah. Well,
they have to deal with.
Yeah, as we wrap up, we started this day for what's going to start as a series that Joe and Joel and Jay started, which is to provide the history, where it's been and where it's going for Massachusetts ASBO, which is the Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials. And we'll put the link for this journey, but they've spent an amazing amount of work in looking at 1957, 1956, I take it back to today. The actual anniversary, I guess, is officially 1957, but research shows that it was 1956. What's really cool is these guys have been to libraries and other places outside of Google to fact check and find some additional facts. But this is a great impromptu educational discussion and to share. And I want to thank you both for 22 plus years of friendship and guidance. And, there's so many memories of when you talked about, when you were young, your daughter being one. I can remember in 2008 walking down the street in Toronto at an event and you sharing your family stories with me and thinking about all of those things that kind of come back in my brain. I'm like, wow, this is...
She has her next book coming out, by the way.
So. Well, you want to plug the books before you go?
It's about cell phone use, so for kids.
Okay, so where do they find the books? This is the first non-plug of a guest. It's the plug of the daughter of the guest. So go ahead.
The book is called Digital Red.
And this is her second or...
This is her 11th book out, but this is her first book of this type that she's done.
She started writing books the same time I started writing my first book in 2018, and she's got 11 and I have 1.
Well, here's a children's book, Josh.
Those are harder to write as an adult, if you ask me.
More pictures.
No.
So, Digital Red. It's due out May 12th. Her name's Kimberly Narkowitz, but I think on the books it's still Kimberly Delude.
Okay.
So
good. Carrying the Delude name.
Amazon,
Barnes and Noble, all those,
Barnes and Noble.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's a first, a plug for someone other than themselves on the podcast. Granted, it's your daughter, and congratulations on 11 books, and tell her I'm impressed with her overachievement with my 1, so that's good. So, but no, this was great. This was completely off the cuff. I walked out of the studio for a second, came back and said, I'd like to share with the world 2 people that I hold very close to my heart, that I care a lot about, that I'm glad we can still get together and do these things. So appreciate you guys doing this.
Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, and
thank you. Thanks, Adam.
As always, Adam knocks out of the park. I just come in, I say, hey, Adam, we got time for a podcast? He's like, well, I got to go in a few minutes, and we rolled this thing out. So appreciate it, as always. Reviews, ratings, we love those. It helps us with our visibility, and hopefully we continue to give you guys the content that you deserve and want and look forward to. And if you want to give me suggestions or guest ideas, always looking for those. Email josh@beawesome.com. And as always, remember, if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great day.
Come to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, see the jerk.